Breaking news now on 13 on your side.
We start with breaking news tonight. 2 people are dead and several others are injured after a hit-and-run crash in Clinton County. Tonight, a gathering was held for a teen who police say was hit by a patrol car while running from officers. Somehow, some way, this woman is only walking away with cuts and bruises. But before we get to her story, I want to show you what happened to her house. Just take a look right here. This is the foundation. This is where her house was. Now, Jason, I want to jump right into your experience. I understand you helped secure the Van Andel Arena when former President Barack Obama came to Grand Rapids. Talk about how tough that is. We start with weather tonight, where we saw some very warm temperatures this weekend, and now I'm hearing severe weather is on the way. It's really cool. It's like almost like a yellow color, and it's definitely like glowing. Definitely use something you see in a movie. And I want to bring out Billy. Billy, you've been out here for a long time. He works in production for us. What's kind of your reaction right now? We begin with breaking news. Kalamazoo public school officials and Kalamazoo Township Police are investigating after a student brought a gun to school. Officials say no one was injured in the incident. Business as usual for the rest of the day, but before we get to them, I want to show you how bad the damage is in the Nims neighborhood here in Muskegon. Just take a look at this tree behind me. It looks like a tornado just went through this neighborhood. You can see it just knocked all the way down. This other big tree also leaning to the side. But that's not all. Take a look at this. This is the pole of a power line snapped in half. You can see that line just dangling. They've had to block off this area to make sure that people stay away because it is still dangerous. Now, Wassersman is just down the street, and we talked to them earlier, and they said while the scene was very scary to see this morning, it's nothing they can't handle. As we come on air tonight, we're following 2 big developing stories. First, President Joe Biden decides to drop out of the race, endorsing Kamala Harris as his replacement. Tonight, we have live team coverage and a major development in the search for a missing teenager from Cedar Springs. She's been found safe. Tonight, we hear from her parents. Good evening, I'm Lauren Baker. 13 on your side news starts right now.
Breaking news now on 13 on your side.
We begin with breaking news tonight and the decision by President Joe Biden to step aside and not accept the Democratic nomination. He announced his decision on social media today, first listing his administration's successes, then writing, quote, "It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president. And while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down." He later endorsed Kamala Harris as his replacement. Tonight, we have team coverage on the president's announcement, starting with ABC's Perry Russum. And people here in our community are reacting to President Joe Biden's decision today. 13 on your side's Kara Patterson spent the day talking to people around Grand Rapids to get their reaction. Michigan politicians from both sides of the aisle responding today to President Biden's decision to drop out. Governor Gretchen Whitmer released a statement saying in part, quote, "President Biden is a great public servant who knows better than anyone what it takes to defeat Donald Trump." She goes on to say, quote, "My job in this election will remain the same, doing everything I can to elect Democrats and stop Donald Trump, a convicted felon whose agenda of raising families' costs, banning abortion nationwide, and abusing the power of the White House to settle his own scores is completely wrong for Michigan." Congresswoman Hillary Scholten also released a statement. If you recall, she's one of the many politicians that called for Biden to step down. In her statement, she says in part, quote, "President Biden made a difficult decision for the good of our nation." She goes on to say, "Let's unite behind Vice President Kamala Harris and rise victorious over extremism this November." And Senator Debbie Stabenow released a statement saying in part, quote, "President Joe Biden has done more for Michigan during his presidency than any other president in my lifetime. In the past 3.5 years, we've fixed thousands of roads and bridges, boosted manufacturing, brought jobs home, lowered the cost of prescription drugs, and seriously tackled the climate crisis. President Biden's long career of public service has truly improved the lives of Americans in so many important ways." She also released a statement about an hour ago saying she endorses Vice President Harris to be the next president. And of course, there are so many more people reacting to this major decision from across the state and our region. If you head to our website, 13onyourside.com, you'll find this story with more reaction from political leaders. Now to another big story we've been following tonight. Pennywise, a Kent County teenager missing since late May, has been found safe and she is okay. The sheriff's department says a witness contacted them after spotting her today, leaving a man's home in Rockford. 13 on Your Side's Marcus Key joins us from the newsroom with more on this story. Some sunny skies on the way this week. Meteorologist Blake Hansen has a full look at the forecast next. Yeah, Elena, somehow, some way, this woman is only walking away with cuts and bruises. But before we get to her story, I want to show you what happened to her house. Just take a look right here. This is the foundation. This is where her house was. You can see debris just spread all over the area. And if you look over to my right, that's where her house is. You can see it's just completely destroyed. And in the middle of all of that debris, that's where she was pinned. Now, I spoke with her family today who got very emotional when they talked about how when they came to this scene, they were just so grateful that instead of planning a funeral, they were just coming back to pick up the pieces.
And I hear that their house is gone. Yeah. And her emotion in that phone call, the screaming, was the worst. It was terrible.
A blanket of fear covers a family Tuesday night after a woman
Tech rescue full response
gets trapped under her own home.
At least 10 trailers are destroyed at this point, one occupied by a female.
It happened after a tornado ripped through a home in the Oak Brook Estates neighborhood in Portage, picking up the woman's home and sending it flying several feet. Kathy Irwin, the cousin of the woman named Therese, showed 13 on Your Side where her cousin was trapped among the rubble with only her arm sticking out.
But it was kind of like right here, because she was pushed into the den. So she went with this room right here. And then Mark ended up in the yard.
Lexi Tewin, another cousin, says she and her brother ran down the street with axes after hearing someone was trapped on her cousin's street.
I was asking people if they were okay as I was making my way, and they're like, we're all fine. There's only one house that was completely destroyed, and there's a woman under it.
But as she and other family members arrived, they realized who it was. Seconds went by. The family worried she wasn't going to make it when help finally arrived and rescued the woman, who walked away with only a couple stitches and bruises.
She's so lucky.
And now as the family shifts through that rubble, trying to find pictures and items they can take home, they say they're blessed and thankful that this story ended with a miracle.
We thank God that it could have been a lot worse. We were here to see, to make sure Teresa and Mark were okay.
Yep.
And thankfully they are.
And you heard another name, Mark. Mark is actually the woman's husband. When this tornado hit, he was pushed out of the house and he actually ended up breaking his neck, but he is going to be okay. Now, another person the family was worried about was the grandpa. He lives just down the street, and they said all night long they were calling and trying to find where he was. And eventually they got through to him and they asked, "Are you okay? Where are you?" And he chuckled and laughed a little bit and said, "Yeah, I took refuge inside a casino." They say now they can laugh about that, and they're just grateful that he's okay too. Reporting in Portage, I'm Lauren Baker, 13 on Your Side. Elena, back to you. Jen Owen says while she misses her son, she hopes his story will put a spotlight on the impacts of gun violence and hopefully save someone's life. Hand in hand,
praying for comfort for all of us,
with their heads bowed,
praying for his daughter, praying that everybody, will continue to surround her with love.
The loved ones of Dylan Owens came together to pray and remember his life.
950 days today. Unbelievable.
Before learning how long his killer will spend in prison.
Every day, we think about him and talk about him. So this is not, a different day. We celebrate a lot of events here with Dylan.
3 years ago, Owen's mother, Jen, says her child was taken away from his family after he was fatally shot by Kevin Wilson in Fruitport because of an argument. And after countless days in the courtroom,
you bring a gun to a fist fight or you bring a gun to a situation, you're going to have to accept the consequences of your actions.
Wilson learned how long he would spend in prison.
As a count one, murder in the second degree, the court's going to sentence you to 270 months to 80 years.
Jen Owen says while she wants justice to be served, What she wants more is for people to put their guns down.
There needs to be a message, to just stop this. And if people have to think about maybe they had to give their life if they took a life, I feel that possibly these young people who are doing these things would take a second thought about it.
And while her son is no longer here,
We won't get Dylan back after your decision.
she hopes her son's story will stop others from pulling the trigger and save people's lives. And this sentencing includes the second-degree murder charge and a felony firearm charge. At 13 on Your Side, we honor all victims of crime who have died through our More Than a Number initiative. Scan this QR code with your phone right now. It will take you to our website. There you can tell us how you are remembering your loved one. You'll also find resources to help your family move forward. I'm Lauren Baker for 13 on Your Side.